And now we're up to Daf Tzadi Tes. Now the Gemara switches everything around and attacks Rebbe Shita, that the tables were from the east to the west. According to Rebbe Lazar, I understand if the tables were going from Tzafon Lidarom, from north to south, Shaper, everything fits nicely, because now all the shulchanos, as we said before, have to be in the tzafon. They're all in the tzafon, because the line of position was tzafon lidarom. Elamad Yomi Mizrach Lamarov. If that be the case, that we accept Rebbe, now the question is, you've positioned the tables from east to west. Did this situation allow for the rows of tables to fit into the area of Michti? Let's take a look. Shulchan kama moshech menakosel, right? The shulchan had to be in the north. And how much is the shulchan in the first row set back from the north? It's got to be shtei amos umechza. So we're talking about the nosei ha'aron, those who bared the aron, according to a Mishnah, which we didn't get to yet. They needed 2.5 amos to allow 2 men to walk abreast. And the Mishnah establishes later on that the procedure of replacing the lechem aponim required a pair of kohanim to walk side by side along the north side of the shulchan. And then they would carry the new breads for the new week. To accommodate them, the shulchan had to be set back from the northern wall at least 2.5 amos. So that's what it says here. Shulchan kama moshuch min hakosel. It's got to be 2.5 amos, based on the Mishnah later on. Vi amadidei, right? And then the shulchan was 2 amos long and 1 amma wide, so we needed the width of 1 amma. He has a diagram here. The amadide, fine. Ushtei amos umechza de beni beni. Now we need another 2.5 amos between the first row and the shulchan of Moshe. Another 2.5 amos. Again, an amo for the width of the table. Another 2.5 amos, beni u beni, between the shulchan of Moshe and the second row, plus the amo of the shulchan in its width of the second row. If we total all this up, we're going to find that the shulchan on the southern row, we're going to protrude a half an amma into the south, based on this calculation. And that can't be, because the Torah says the shulchan has to be in the north and not in the south. The total figure equals 10.5 amos, if you calculate all these numbers. Now, the northern half of the Heichal was only 10 amos. And now you came up with a total of 10.5 amos, then a half an amma of the width of the southernmost row of tables protrudes into the southern half of the Heichal. And that we can't allow. So the Gemara resolves it and says the following: Bisav shulchan de Moshe bahadayu havi Yosiv. You're assuming that the shulchan of Moshe was between the top row and the second row below it. Lo, that's not so. De midle le umonachle. What they did was they took, right, if you're looking from north to south, they took the shulchan of Moshe and they placed it on the western side. So you had one row, another row, and the Shulchan of Moshe in between the rows, but on the left, which is the western side, umitate lehud l'didhu purta. They brought down the other Shulchanos towards the east to make room for the Shulchan of Moshe on the west. So the other Shulchanos in relation to the Shulchan of Moshe, Kid Talmud Yoshev Lifnei Rabbah. Wow, interesting. Okay, now the Gemara talks about the 10 Shulchanos of Shlomo Melech. Tarabban. Asa Shulchanos Asa Shlomo. Loya Misadrin Ella Al Shel Moshe. All the tables, the 10 tables, were Al means upon the Shulchan of Moshe. Shenemar v'esa Shulchan asher olav lechem aponim zav. So it says olav in the singular. That means that the lechem aponim was only on one Shulchan. And yet, Shlomo Melech added 10 Shulchanos to the Shulchan of Moshe. And we have the same parallel thing by the menorahs. Eser menorahs asa Shlomo, v'lo madlikim el b'shel Moshe. Right, they only lit one menorah, that of Moshe. Shenemar menorahs hazav v'neosel levar erev. The Gemara has a pasuk for that. So this is really interesting. It seems like, Shlomo Melech had some sort of a hidur, a beautification of the Mikdash by adding Shulchanos. But according to this opinion in the Brisa, the Shulchanos did not function for the Lechem Aponim. Only one Shulchan, namely that of Moshe Rabbeinu, functioned. And the same thing with the menorahs. However, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua Omer, he disagrees. Al Kulam Hayu Misadri. They put the Lechem Aponim on each one of the tables, not simultaneously, meaning they could put the Lechem Aponim on any one of the tables. How do I know this? Shenemar Es hashulchanos v'aleim lechem aponim. The tables with the lechem aponim upon them. Here it's in the plural. Aleihem. Same thing we have with regard to the menorahs. Bekulon hayom adlikim shenemar es hamenoros. In the plural, v'nerosehem leva'aram kemishpat lefnei hadvir. Dvir means the kodesh kadoshim. Zahav sagur. Sagur means the finest. So it was the finest gold. So you see that they were madlik all the menorahs. Now here I think, I don't have a proof for this, that it literally means that they lit up all the menorahs. I don't know. Anyway, that's the second opinion. Now we have a third opinion. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Lo haya misajin ela al shel Moshe. So in that sense, he's agreeing with the other Tanoim. But yet, the pasuk says, "The es hashulchanos elamani mekayim." What am I going to do with a pasuk that has shulchanos in plural? It says aleihem, on all of them there was lechem upon him. Says Rabbi Yossi, Ella shlosha shulchanos shahayu b'mikdash. There were 3 shulchanos in the mikdash. Shnayim hayu ba'ulam. Ulam is on the other side of the mizbeach. Bifnim. Now, these were 2 shulchanos that were in the ulam according to Rabbi Yossi. Right, the ulam is right near the Pesach Habayis. Al Pesach Habayis. They were placed at the back of the ulam, but within, next to the Pesach of the Heichal. And there were two of them. Echad shel kesef, one was made of silver, the echad shel zav. Okay, what were they functioning? Al shel kesef nosein lechem upon b'knisaso. When the Kohen came in, he would first place the lechem upon him on that shulchan that he met b'knisaso when he entered in, and that's shel kesef, made of silver. And then he goes up to the next madrega, al shel zav b'yitziasa. When he exits, the bread would remain there until after they brought the Shnei Bazichin and they were maktir on the Mizbeach. And that was done on a Shulchan of Zav. Then he started with the Shulchan of Kesef. He put the Lechem upon him b'knisaso. Then he puts the Lechem on a gold table b'yitziaso. So he went from silver to gold, and then he goes back to gold again. Why is that? Shemaylim v'kodesh v'lo morid. They were always going to go up, but never down. So if you go from kesef to zav, you're going up. From zav to zav, you're not going down. Echad shel zav b'fnim. And then we get to the most important shulchan, which is the shulchan of Moshe Rabbeinu. It was made of gold, and it was b'fnim, it was inside the heichal, and all of lechem upon him tummy. So in other words, the plural of shulchanos, which we saw in the pasuk earlier, referring to the shulchanos of Shlomo, he says here, when the pasuk in plural refers to shulchanos, it's not referring, as I mistakenly said, to the 10 tables of Shlomo Mel, but to the table of Moshe plus the two other tables that were located in the Ulam. So according to Rabbi Yossi, the pasuk speaks in the plural regarding the tables on which the lechem upon them were placed. Nothing here discusses the menorah. And anyway, minolan to ein moridin. Do you have a source in the Torah for this principle of ein moridim, that you don't go down? And then we'll have to find the source that you go up, but first that you don't go down. Amar Rebbe Diyama Kra, and this pasuk is in Shmos Perek Mem. Vayakom Moshe es hamishkan, vayiten es adonav, vayasem es krashav, vayiten es brichav, vayakem es amudav. I'll read the English translation. And Moshe raised up the Mishkan. He put down its sockets. He emplaced its beams. He inserted its bars. And he raised up its pillars. So this means v'ein moridin. Of course, the pasuk begins with vayakom. He raised up. So he has here three different pshatim as to how you derive ein moridin. He ends up again with the word vayakam. Vayasam es kroshav, vayakam es amudav. Right, vayakam Moshe es hamishkan, and then at the end it says vayakam es amudav, ein moridin. We're not going to go down. It's always going to be vayakam. And then he has another pshat here, that it starts with telling us that Moshe erected the Mishkan without any help from the Kohanim, because if there would have been any other help by the Kohanim, it would have been Morid, and it would have represented a descent. Or the third pshat he has here is that Vayokom Moshe HaMishkan is referring to the goat's hair covering of the Mishkan, right? There was a goat's hair covering. And the Pasuk tells us that Moshe began his work by lifting up the coverings. He held the coverings high. As he assembled the other components of the Mishkan, he did not lower them throughout the process. Once a sacred object has been lifted, it may not be lowered. Uminol to Malin, where do we know that we go up? Omer of Acha Bar Yaakov the Omer Kra, Es. Okay, where's this pasuk? In Bamidbar Perik Yud Zayin, it says, Es Machtos, oh, this is after the story of Korach. It says, Es Machtos Achatoim Ha'elev and Avshosam. Also, you take these Machtos that have a certain Kedusha to it, and what do? You don't just throw them out, but rather you convert them into Rikei Pachim Tzipulim Mizbeach. You make them into hammered out sheets to cover the Mizbeach. Ki Hikrivum Lifnei Hashem. Right, because Korach had offered them in front of Hashem, and there was therefore Vayikdosha, they became sanctified. V'yula also Bnei Yisrael, B'tchila Tashmishim Mizbeach. First, they were shovels, and they were Tashmishim Mizbeach. V'achshav, and now, by converting them into Rikuei Pachin, they became part of the Mizbeach itself. So we see that these so-called incense shovels were elevated to a high level of Kedusha. That's called Mailim V'Kodesh. Another derivation, Asher Shibarta V'Samtam Ba'aron. Moshe Rabbeinu destroyed the first set of luchos, and it had to be placed into the Aron. And Tani Rav Yosef, we learned in a brisa, Melamich HaLuchos V'Shivrei Luchos Munachim B'Aron. So we don't just get rid of the Shivrei Luchos, the broken pieces of the Aron, but rather we put of the luchos, but rather we put them in to the Aron. And now we have a long agadata. First, mikan l'talmud chacham sheshochet talmud machmas onso v'torah skala forgot his Torah. Ein nogim bo minyan bizamon. We have to still keep honoring him, like we continued honoring the Shivrei Luchos. So, a scholar who forgot his Torah is like Shivrei Luchos. Omer Shlokish. Take care of this for a second.